Captain Pike.
Yes, it is. But we're not talking about Captain Pike today. We are talking about Star Trek Picard, and we are going to be covering No-Win Scenario, the 4th episode. We're headed into that middle stretch, guys, and I gotta tell you, it's still quality stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I certainly hope you're all along for the ride. We have a lot of thoughts on it, and bean footage. And we are back after that amazing, beautiful bean footage. I am Marie Brownhill. You see me here at Trekker's Delight and Game Industry News. I am joined with the wonderful Jermaine, who we miss a lot. We have Jason McCammon and also Keith Shovlin. So, all right, guys, who drew the short straw today?
I think it's Jermaine's turn.
Ah, yeah. Jermaine's the only one who hasn't done it yet. And I think now he's hiding. we see you fall. We see you peeking.
I'm falling and I can't get up.
You can get up. We don't believe in no-win scenarios over here.
Oh
boy.
My God!
I didn't mean well.
Oh my God! We're already starting on the no-win scenario jokes. Oh, there are going to be so many of them today. So. Today is the first episode thus far in Star Trek Picard that did not, in fact, do anything terrible to my blood pressure by the end of it.
I have some notes.
It had a happy ending.
It had an ending, right? Like there was no cliffhanger. Like we finished something.
They tried very hard to have a cliffhanger. They tried very hard to be like, oh, what's that cliffhanger? Stranger Things.
I do want to say this. It didn't feel like a filler episode, even though it clearly was a filler episode. It didn't feel like one. It was like it made me feel like a regular TNG episode from back in the 80s or 90s. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And what I liked is we had a conclusion to one arc and a continuation of another.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the conclusion that we get in this episode is we get the Titan out of the nebula, which is super important.
Mm-hmm.
But the other arc that we're looking at is, of course, this, emotional thematic underpinning of this particular season, which is connection and that father-son bond or that parent-child bond that everybody's kind of kicking back and forth around to see, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? What do we do? So, who wants, again, Jermaine?
Not going to happen.
I'm taking it, okay?
All right, but I'm going to rush you through this because we have things to talk about.
Yes. Yeah, Jason, quiet.
I was going to say,
you have 5 minutes. Go.
Okay. Okay, episode 4 of Picard season 3, No-Win Scenario. Oh, we pick up exactly where we left off last episode. The Titan is spiraling towards imminent doom at the center of this nebula.
Doom!
Yes. And there are these weird flashes of biological energy every few minutes. And amazingly, Beverly has already gotten timed as if she's like watching it, has a wristwatch and is,
check this in the iPad.
As if she's some type of certain doctor knowing that certain energy waves are happening. Picard is high in his quarters. Riker.
Yeah, that just got weird, Keith. That just got really weird.
Sorry. Yeah, Riker is trying to find any way possible to save the day, and realizing that they will only have about 4 hours of life
Energy.
support left.
Yeah.
4 hours of life support left, unless they don't get crushed in the center of the nebula first. He goes down to apologize to Picard after, kicking him off the bridge at the end of last episode. Of course, Picard tries to apologize first, and he tells him to shut up, which is always a good way to apologize to someone, is start by telling them to shut up. But
it's typical Riker, though.
yes, and he's
Right.
almost, wishful, looking at, this is the end of the line for us, because there's no getting out of this one. So go talk to your damn son. So
Move along.
Picard goes down, grabs Jack, and takes him to 10 forward. As we've been teased in the ending credits, we finally get them going to 10 forward bar.
Did this sequence make anybody else twitch? Because it sure made me twitch.
Well,
but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
And of course, Jack is going, aren't we on like low power? How is the holodeck still working? In which Picard points out that there's a separate battery that can't be hooked up to anything else, I guess. And so that the holodeck can be there as a refuge when all shit goes to hell,
That's terrible for like a warrior ship.
Yeah. Well, no, this is a ship of exploration, remember. This isn't a warship.
Oh, okay.
But and Jack pointed out the rightful thing of, so everything's falling apart outside, but in here it's a tropical paradise. God. So it's almost kind of like
Voyager.
Doping yourself and like in straight Brave New World. Yeah.
Or Voyager with the Twisty Turny episode, and they went all inside the holodeck, wait to die. In a bar, no doubt.
Yeah, this is getting dark, y'all. Getting dark. All right. So this is a happy ending, damn it.
Meanwhile, Commander 7 is on the lookout trying to find the changeling crewman. She goes to the guy's quarters and finds his dead body. And sure enough, he's been dead since before the Doctor and Jack came on board. She doesn't say it, but probably before Riker and Picard came on board as well. So she goes to Shaw, who doesn't want to talk to anybody, but she goes in anyway, and he tells her to look for the goo, try to find the pail, and we get a picture of Odo.
Here we do.
We got a picture of Odo on the
tablet.
We do, yeah.
So while at the bar, they're telling stories. Jack is very worried about losing his hair. And apparently he is 23 or 24.
Shenanigans.
No.
Shenanigans. But anyway,
yes.
You're staring down the 2-minute warning, Keith.
Okay.
35 is the new 23.
Well, Shaw interrupts them.
That works out well for me.
Yeah, Shaw interrupts us, and the other secret that's been staring us in the face in the post-credits, we find out that he was on a ship that was destroyed at the Battle of Wolf 359. He was one of only 10 members of engineering that got out. And of course, he blames Locutus himself, the only Borg evil enough to have a name, because obviously numbers are not names. So that, of course, causes Picard to go out, and he finds Beverly, and Beverly has figured out that, yes, this nebula is about to give birth, and these beams of energy can be captured possibly to get the ship out. They try to convince Riker. Riker's not buying it. But then Beverly's like, Riker, come on. It's us. We're the main cast of the show. They're not going to kill us off.
That's literally what happened, yeah.
And then he remembers, if we could actually collect energy into the nacelles, and wait, that's technology that our current crew can't do, but what if we had an old engineer from 20 years ago? Hey, Shaw.
We have one over there.
So, Seven goes try to track down the changeling, with Riker saying keep it secret, and she ends up finding them. But she finds the bucket, then the guy turns on it, destroys the bucket. So they decide to she's helping Shaw trying to open up the nacelles, and realizing that that's going to draw in the changeling, who could be anyone, knowing any information, like if there's a certain helmsman that goes on and on and on about who her father is. So they're getting everything set up on the bridge, and sure enough, here comes Ensign LaForge, but it's not Ensign LaForge, it's the changeling.
Really?
Seven knows it immediately, but just to be sure, makes her say the wrong name. And then they are able to get energy from the wave. Meanwhile, while this is happening on the Shrike, Vatic has cut off her own hand in order to communicate with their boss. And he says, "What the hell are you doing? Get them. Why are you letting them die?" So
No, not them. Jack Crusher.
Jack, yes.
Yeah, we don't care about anybody else.
Yes.
And he is an asset.
Yes. So then they are now riding their way out of there, and here's the Shrike right in their way. And Riker goes, "Hey, you're going to hit this ship with another ship. I'm going to hit you with a freaking asteroid." And God damn right I am. So he uses the same trick, using the tractor beam to throw. And since they had got rid of the portal device because the gravitational distortion wouldn't allow them to go after the Port Titan, they are able to get past the Shrike, and off they go back into Federation space. The Shrike is out there somewhere. They still don't know why. They still don't know what up with Vatic. And then we go back, and of course, throughout the whole episode, we're watching as 5 years in the past, Picard was telling stories to cadets at 10 Forward during his self-imposed exile to Labar.
Is the future? Is it past or the future?
Past.
It's the past. It's
5 years in the
previous.
past.
Yeah.
And we find that there was this handsome British 18-year-old sitting at the bar that interrupted him. And
which I buy so much even less than 23.
Yes. Well, he's got a hat on, so...
Right.
I thought it was the future, so...
No, it's 5 years in the past. So this was 2396, and we do know now that it is 2401. And so we find out that he did actually try to reach out to Picard, but because Picard was boasting to Starfleet cadets at the time, he basically said, "I don't need no son," to his son that he didn't know was his son.
And
so
that went super well.
Yeah. So now the
only family I needed was Starfleet.
The Shrike is damaged from having been hit by the asteroid. The Titan is on its way somewhere. Raffi and Worf are AWOL this episode, but we know that they're going to be back next episode from the clip that showed during the Ready Room. And Jack, at the end, Jack, we're wondering what the hell is up with Jack, and here he is cleaning himself in his quarters, and he gets the red door vision again, like we saw when he was gassed in the previous episode, and all kinds of red vines, and someone saying, "Finally."
Okay. It was not quite 5 minutes, my friend.
There was a lot to cover.
Warp and Raffi were probably just.
We also forgot like the callback to Farpoint, right? Like with the birth of all of the space jellyfish.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was cute. But
well, they even mentioned Farpoint too.
They do, yes. Just in case you didn't put that together on your own.
Right. Yeah, they did that more than a few times.
Right. You know, we don't know if you remember, but there was this thing. Yeah, no. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Shaw. Let's get that out of the way first. So who wants to chat Shaw?
Still not likable, right?
No.
I mean, just
what did he say? He says, "I mistook asshole for charm."
Yes.
I started to like him.
Right?
I think he was the most likable in this episode. Yeah,
when he apologized, he was like, "Hey, look, bygones are bygones. My bad. You're a good officer. You're gonna make a great."
That is literally not what he was doing.
That is not what he was not apologizing. He was basically apologizing, saying how much he really was sorry and everything, because she knew that he wasn't sorry and he wouldn't apologize.
Right. So that's how she's demonstrating.
If he was saying this, that he would be a changeling.
Yes.
That was the whole point of that.
Mm-hmm.
I get that, but but I still feel like there was a sense of, okay, all right, let's reset.
Okay.
But that's not what he was doing.
Well, we did get his backstory, and we did find out that he's a dipshit from Chicago, which Picard threw right back at him, and his best response, "Nice."
Don't put no shade on Sci-Fi.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, if that's your only reason for liking him a little bit more is the context of that conversation, then I'm not following.
Well, no, there's a lot more to it. I mean, this episode he was
So he could
got
have
a lot more of
he could have been a true dick and just been like, no, I'm staying in my room. I'm not gonna help. You know?
I hurt too much.
It's still his ship. What are you talking about? He's still a
It is
Starfleet
a ship,
officer.
but at that point, okay, his mouth has been whatever. It's fine now. Like, okay, I can resume duties. He didn't do that.
But he still dies.
What he was basically
Everybody
saying, what he was basically saying is, I really feel like you guys are probably, you know, better suited to get us out of this particular situation.
Which I have a problem with that as well, with him just sort of standing off, because I don't think any captain of the ship would do that ever. To just sit on the sidelines while somebody just does everything. No, but I don't think any captain would do that. If it was your ship, you wouldn't just be like, oh, fuck it at all. Just leave. Especially when stakes are high, you would still want to know what's going on. He still knows the ship better and knows the crew better and knows a lot of shit about the ship better.
Right, but we know from his background that he started out as a grease monkey. We also know from what we heard from Riker originally is that he's terribly by the book. And I think one of the good things he's demonstrating here is he's recognizing where his strength in command lies, and it is not in pulling weird ass shit out of his ass to save the day. And he happens to have people aboard who specialize in pulling the aforementioned weird ass shit out of their aforementioned asses. And so that's what he's doing.
Well,
he's being a good officer here.
I'm not saying that's not true. I'm saying that what he wouldn't do is not pay any attention to it whatsoever. I'm
not following.
I think what Jason is saying is at the very least he could stay on the bridge.
Oh, stay on the bridge or stay informed or look to know what's going on. He doesn't care what's going on. The only reason why he gave input was because Seven came to him. But still, even if he was like, okay, I'm not fit for this. This is a situation where these guys would do better because of their history. He would still want to be somewhat informed about what's going on his ship, and number two, that everybody could die in the next couple hours.
Okay, so I feel really dirty having to defend Shaw. Jermaine.
But still, if he were to stay on the ship, okay, so number one, I don't think his relationship with his officers was the best. That's number one. Number two, if he had stayed on the bridge, he would have gotten in their way. He would have quoted all of these Starfleet regulations, not every which way, right? He simply would have gotten in their way from saving.
I'm not saying he would have to intervene. I'm saying he would still want to know what is going on the ship.
That's also, he was tripping balls.
He was
on pain medication.
Maybe.
Yeah, but he was also injured, which is the real reason he was forced to leave the bridge.
Right.
Yeah. So I
Michael.
I see your humility is intact, my friend. Judging by your postscript there. But yeah, no, I do feel really dirty having to defend Shaw because I think Shaw does a lot of things that are not defensible. But at the end of the day, I think he's a good officer, actually. I don't think he's the flash in the pan kind of officer that we're going to get with a Picard or a Riker or a Kirk or whoever. Like, that's not who he is. That's not what he's supposed to do. And that's not what the Titan A is designed to do, frankly. I mean, he does long haul escort missions. He does all of I hesitate to bring Lower Decks into this and mention Second Contact, but I suspect that's a Shaw specialty.
Yeah. You know what I thought of when I was watching this episode, which I just finished about 4 minutes ago?
Yes, Trekkie of the Year.
Yeah. Trekkie.
I'm not letting that go. I'm not letting that go.
Trekkie still got to get paid. But I immediately thought when he was talking about Wolf 359, his demeanor, his mannerisms, I said, you know what? This is who Sisko would have been had he not met the prophets.
You think so? Yeah, he was playing for his wife, and he did at the beginning of the show. That was his.
No,
character.
I mean, I think Sisko would have eventually figured out a way to grind up glass and put it in Jean-Luc's hamburger. And I don't know that Shaw would ever have been that creative.
No, actually, I think Sisko is a bigger man than that, and after a little bit of time, he would have gotten over that. Sisko's a bigger man. He wouldn't let that. He would not have let that. He's not that weak of a person. He would let that.
He literally.
Don't you remember? He was face to face with Jean-Luc Picard. Like, when have we ever seen that happen?
was way early in Deep Space Nine.
I gotta tell you,
don't
Manny
matter.
agrees with me.
I mean, I agree with you too. I agree with you too. But I think that Sisko was consumed by grief. If we want to do a quick step back, when he met the prophets for the first time, Jadzia was like, "It is beautiful. It is sunny. This is an amazing place out here in this wormhole." And he is in this dark, cold, stormy, violent place. And they were like, "You live here. What are you talking about? You live here." Shaw is living in that place.
Okay, so I also think there's a slight difference here. Sisko is grieving, right? Sisko is upset because he's lost his wife. His whole world has been turned on its head. That's not what Shaw is suffering. Shaw is experiencing survival guilt. Shaw doesn't understand why he lived.
Roll the dice.
And so he is literally trying to figure out a way to live up to that. And rather than looking at it as some sort of inspiration to continue forward, to improve himself, it's become paralyzing. And that's who Shaw is.
But I agree that to your point, I think that they did have two separate causes. I just think that both of them lived in that same place. Remember, I would just one last call back to Sisko, and then I'm gonna move past this. Sisko was about to leave Deep Space Nine. He was like, "I got this transfer ready to go, baby." If he would have never hit that wormhole, he would have been like, "Fuck you, Picard. Fuck you, Deep Space Nine. Kira, your angry ass can have my office."
But I still think regardless, Sisko is a stronger man, and he's a man of growth. No matter what has happened to him, I think he would have grown beyond it. It's been 30 years. He would have grown.
He also has
beyond
Jake.
He also has Jake. Yep.
And that's a big difference too.
The person more like Sisko in this episode is Riker. The one having lost the child. He's the one dealing with grief and not really feeling it right.
Or not really feeling it at all. He has become paralyzed. He talks about feeling nothing, and being married to an empath, that'd be a shit show. So that's kind of and that's why he's out here, right? Is he's out here trying to shock something back into himself, maybe have this adventure. And he gets a little bit of that back, right? He gets to see the wonder in addition to the loss. And so that's kind of helping to heal that broken parent-child bond. Because you're right, Keith, Thad's ghost has haunted the first 4 episodes of this season.
Absolutely.
I do agree that Shaw was on meds, so things were brought out from his conscious, or things were brought out that he hasn't been able to say or deal with on the surface that he's been burying. So he came out.
Nah, that wasn't the first time that he's mentioned it. It was just the first time that it was raw.
Yeah,
that's the first time he came hardcore with it, like in your face with it. What happened to Mike?
Cool. Thanks, Manny.
We love it. So yeah, So let's move on from Riker, because we have talked a little bit about what's going on with Riker. Do we want to can we have a brief moment to talk about what's going on with Beverly? Because oh my God, did no one else think to time these waves?
I was upset.
Where is the science officer?
I'm like, where's the science officer? Where are the engineers on this ship? Why is it?
Well, the engineers are trying to fix the engine.
First of all, they had a whole conversation, and maybe it's the ready room. Not one of those people worked on the ship, right? It was like Beverly and Riker and Picard and Jack. Not one person that worked on that ship. Was 7 there? She might have been there, but no engineers were there. They worked on that ship. No science officers were there that worked on that ship. So I'm just kind of like, why are these the people? I understand why they had to be there, but why is there nobody else there that's a science officer on the ship? And Beverly,
right? And also, like, why did we have to have these weird sort of like contractions in the nebula? Like, what?
Right.
I mean, as a long-standing Star Trek fan, I'm accustomed to ridiculousness. I do remember the world-eating spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I do.
Doomsday Machine, yeah.
Yes.
You're not talking about Unicron.
Oh no, but thank you for bringing more of my childhood trauma to the fore. Thank you so much. I get that, but like, if anything, if there is a weakness to this episode, it's that those sort of plot points are kind of struggling a little.
You know why it's struggling? Because you've watched 40 years of Star Trek. I don't know what the math is of Star Trek, and there's always a ship's engineer present in these circumstances, like always. And the fact that there was none whatsoever is, I think that's a big hole in Star Trek. It's like, okay, you should put them in, coach.
And also, why is Jack the one who's, why is Jack the one who's calling out the marks? Shouldn't that be LaForge?
Should be.
Right? Like,
well, she's flying.
She's piloting.
So...
Yeah.
Or the dude, or the Bajoran guy,
Mara. Well, the thing is, like, Tavine last episode, the science officer, was all about there's something biological, there's something biological, there's something biological. She kept on saying it, and no one was picking up anything about it. But obviously, Beverly was. It's just she was also dealing with Jean-Luc. This is your son.
I mean, she was down there giving compressions and apparently reading bridge reports.
Right? Like,
but that's how good she is.
It still needs a science officer's mark on it somewhere.
Right.
Tavine had nothing to do in this episode, which is odd because she's right there. And
she literally, she definitely had one of those Gwen moments from like, it's a fantastic movie, Galaxy Quest, right? Where she's like, I have one job. It's stupid, but I'm going to do it. Like, she's literally holding the little thing going 1, 2, 3. Like,
yeah, it should. And you know what? At first I didn't even get that. Oh, she was timing contractions.
Yeah.
But when I got it, I was like, oh my God, that's terrible. What they should have did, they should have had a science officer read some readings, be like, this looks biological, and then go to Beverly and have the both of them together decide what to do. That would have been a happy medium.
Yeah. Or there was a crap ton of explosions on the bridge last episode. She could have been down there and just been like being healed really quickly and been like, we got to get out of this thing. Beverly, this thing?
You're right. And the fact that Beverly, even though it's biological, wasn't she the one to bring up the fact of using that energy to power the ship?
No, it was Jack.
Was it Jack that said it? Well, you know what? Jack's a medical officer too. He's a medical.
Well, there was a little bit of Picard in him,
Yeah, well, it's almost like they've never had to deal with a wave before. What was the psionic wave? Like,
I'm like, this is coasting waves is kind of a Star Trek trope at this point.
Yeah.
If
it worked, the Next Generation, where they were trying to build a wave as a alternative to warp drive. Yeah,
right. And in Star Trek 2009, they literally coast that wave to get away from the singularity.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been surfing weird ass waves.
Generations they did that as well, right?
No. Well, in Undiscovered Country, you had the Excelsior turn into the wave to ride the wave from Praxis. Rather than getting into it, but
yeah. I mean, waves are a thing. Waves are a thing.
By the way, we did have a lens flare right before Picard said "engage" at the end of the episode.
I know. I know.
Did Seven call Riker Commander at one point?
I think he does. Actually, I think he slips.
We don't really know a lot about their relationship, but it seems like goes back years, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we know that goes back years. We were there.
I felt like at one point, I thought it was Seven that did it, and I was like, "What? Did you just say Commander?" Like when he called down to ask about the opening of the nacelle covers, which
yes, she did.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say the scene of them, just the two of them in the observation room, him telling her to keep quiet, knowing that there's an open door right to the bridge right behind them.
I know.
Oh, how often have we
But
heard
also mad shout out to Seven for literally calling Shaw a dick. I mean, she finally gets to get a little bit of her own back in this episode.
I have to say that.
And are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yes, and I hate it.
I'm a little disappointed in Seven's character, only because I see zero of her old character. I don't see a merger, or I don't see an evolution. I see absolutely nothing from 7 of 9 of Voyager. She's like not the same person at all. She doesn't look like she grew or evolved or learned anything from the person she was.
I would disagree as well.
How you disagree? Like
well, considering we've had 2 seasons of Picard to see this different 7 from what she was on Voyager, and then
she is different from Voyager.
Yeah, I know, but we've seen what that evolution was. We saw what happened to Icheb in all gory detail. We saw
she was already that person when Icheb died. The person that she is now, she's still. I'm just saying, like, her mannerisms and the way she acts. She hasn't carried any of it over. She could literally be.
As she said last season, Starfleet wouldn't take her because she was a former drone, and she obviously really took that to heart, and that burned her. So she went and did the Ranger work to.
So she has let down her hair both literally and metaphorically.
Yeah,
but she has like.
Also, remember.
What I'm saying is she has like zero mannerisms from the old 7 of 9, like absolutely zero.
Yeah, it's been 20 years.
Exactly.
20
all
years.
of us, every person 20 years ago still has mannerisms, things that they had 20 years ago that just grew out differently. Everybody does.
Well, I would say that I would just harken back to her and Chakotay on that holodeck.
Why? No.
You mean that
did not happen? I refuse to accept that happened.
That relationship that they teased about for 5 years?
I don't know if that's the case, but anyway,
it's not the case.
But
no, it's not at all.
But during that, I mean, she had this idea of being fully human and being completely human. And so it would make sense that once she had the opportunity to fully immerse herself in like human culture, that she adopts more of those mannerisms and becomes more human, even though she accepts that she is Borg, but she has more examples. She's not learning from 147 people anymore. She's learning from billions of people. And the anger that she faced after being rejected from Starfleet, when we started Star Trek Picard, it is like very apparent that whole season she was angry at everybody. Her and Rafi's relationship was falling apart because of that anger. And so like it was just
pendulum.
Yeah.
Well, take Spock, for example. Spock, for 50 years, you can look at the last.
He's a Vulcan. But he's a Vulcan as well. You know what I'm saying?
He's also a human.
I will say that this show is a bit better written than some of those things with Spock in it.
Not Spock.
Yes, this is even a bit better written than previous seasons of this show have been.
Well, that goes without saying.
But no, I do think Michael's right. I think we're seeing a pendulum for 7. She's vacillating between two extremes, the Borg extreme and the human extreme, and she's trying to figure out where she falls in that spectrum. And that has been and we certainly saw in last season that's been an ongoing process for her.
I get that. I'm just saying I see zero of who she was before, like zero. Not like a growth of she's changed over time, but like absolutely she's a completely different character that has almost nothing to do with the character she had at first.
I mean, hopefully next episode they have her doing a few calculations off. That
would be nice. That would be nice. Yeah, that would be nice. It would be y'all. It would be nice.
If she said
it would be nice for like a female character to figure some shit out.
If she said comply once or twice, that would be great. You know, if she anything like that.
Okay,
something small.
Let me just point out one thing. I mean, as I put on my nameplate here, I am from Pittsburgh. I haven't lived in Pittsburgh in over 20 years now. I very rarely say yins or any other Pittsburghese. And my eating habits, my workout habits, a lot of the things I did growing up, I don't do anymore. I am a completely different person from when I moved away from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, that's a thing.
What is that?
Y'all.
It's short for you ones. It's the same thing as y'all. It's just only for Western Pennsylvania.
Lord Jesus.
Yes, the extreme Scotch-Irish.
Yeah, but
influence
something
on the
about
air.
your character is the same from 20 years
And
ago.
I would argue that something about Seven, his character, has remained.
I guess my argument is that nothing is. I guess that's my argument. Zero.
Right. Which happens. I mean, you've had this. She's had a completely different life. So far away from the Borg since then, and plus even just the physical changes. Everybody goes through every 7 years having the complete genetic change. So she is 3 times over a different person from when she left Voyager.
I mean, fair play.
And has fully immersed herself and acclimated into Starfleet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
under the world's crappiest boss.
And in order for her to, get along, she's got to be more Starfleet-esque. You know what I'm saying?
I get that. You guys are missing the point. You guys are missing the point. We're not seeing a character that has changed from who she was to who she is now. We're seeing an entirely different person. If she wasn't labeled 7 of 9, you would not even, or she didn't have her things, you would have no idea that was her whatsoever.
And I disagree on that.
Okay. Well,
all right. Now
I respectfully disagree.
We have reached the agree to disagree point in today's program. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the very big elephant in the room, right? Which is this relationship between Jack and Jean-Luc.
Oh, they're cool now.
Are they?
I don't know that I would call them cool, but
they're all right.
Yeah, it's fair.
Well, you're welcome. Brought to you today by Best Buy.
That's our word.
And right
here we go.
And also lens flare. He's embracing the
yes. I'm in the J.J. Abrams lens flare.
First of all, William needs his own show called Star Trek Walks.
Thank you. Just like how Riker can just do this.
We haven't seen that. We haven't seen it yet. I'm waiting for it.
Well, that pair is very tall.
They are taller.
Yeah, like I'm looking at that going, that would require a tremendous amount of flexibility to get over those chairs.
But he is not a young man anymore.
I think like everybody knowing Star Trek, and this is the last season that you probably see Riker. I think that's an important thing for somebody to say. Let's just stick that in one scene, one time, right?
And I think Jonathan Frakes says, "I can't do that anymore."
Oh, right. that's true.
We also have like 6 more episodes. But all right, so Jermaine has mentioned previously that he sees a little bit of Picard in Jack. You want to flesh that out for us?
Stubborn ass.
I was talking to Jermaine.
Oh, okay.
Just his ingenuity. Like I realized, what was it? Episode 1, maybe episode 2. They were trying to say basically he looks like Picard. No, I don't see that. But he has a certain ingenuity to himself. Oh, someone else has joined. Who is this?
He's got more ingenuity.
Manny.
Oh my God! History has been made.
Manny said he would outdo you.
Welcome to Star Trek.
Hey guys, how are you?
Full house, right?
I have to jump in here and argue against this 7 of 9 nonsense and this Shaw nonsense. What's going on?
That's what brought you out.
Woo! Crazy.
Okay.
I agree. Let's get back to Picard and his son. How are you?
I think Jack has more ingenuity than Picard. Picard is a fucking commander. He hands down. I would say Jack has way more ingenuity than him. I would say Janeway has way more ingenuity than him. As far as
Picard is 98 years old, so
I wasn't going to go there.
I'm going to say at this point, I think he's past 100.
Leave it alone.
No, he's born in 2305 and it's 2401.
Wow.
So 90.
This is where we are now. We're like Picard's old, so his brain's not working so much. Which was also a bit of a moment that I had watching this because remember previously when he couldn't remember what star bases were active and not, and now we're going to trust him to navigate out of an asteroid field.
Well, he did in that one
episode. I'm going to need you to make a choice. I'm going to need you to choose between geriatric Picard and badass Picard.
Well, there's a difference between a starbase and knowing how to captain a ship. You know what I'm saying? Especially with people around you who you do trust.
That's a different brain muscle. It really is.
Oh, no. We lost Manny.
Oh no!
What was the episode when Picard was in the shuttlecraft ahead and he had to navigate? Oh, change course. 352 Mark 257. Correction. You know what I'm talking about. And then also
symbolically, of course.
Oh, him and
Jack Crusher. Jack Crusher the younger steps into Jack Crusher Senior's literal spot.
Yeah.
In the story. Which is kind of an interesting change in that dynamic, right? We go from best friends and crushing on the same lady to, a father-son situation.
Maria, I actually had a question about that. Okay. So would Jack Crusher be technically considered a junior?
No.
Like the second?
Well, yes. Oh no. Oh, that's crazy. That's weird. No,
because I'm gonna mute myself, but that's something I've been wondering.
Because it's not his father. Blood. It's not his father.
Yeah, it's not, but yeah. So it's no, I don't think.
Technically, you put anything on a birth certificate.
Right. I mean, this is true.
There is no strict rule for what a junior is.
Right, but I think William's got a point, right? Where we're not actually passing anything down from Jack to Jack because there's a genetic break there.
Not genetically, but I think that's up to the mother's discretion at that point. He could be JJ if he wants.
Because she intentionally named Jack after her late husband, and even Picard said, I would have probably done the same thing. So does that make him Jack Crusher II, but not necessarily Junior?
Yeah.
I would just avoid all of that. That would
right. I mean, because I think that's really super based in very patriarchal assumptions about how we pass things down, patronymics, that kind of thing. And I'm really hoping that by the time we hit the 24th, 25th centuries, that we no longer have to deal with that nonsense unless you really want to.
I don't think so. I think having a junior is fine. I think you should have them. The thing is not having that. The thing is adding them for women.
Well, you know what? Okay, good point. Because when
equated to junior,
when Deanna called, and somebody said, "Is that Deanna?" I think it was Crusher Beverly. She said, "Is that Deanna or whatever it was?" She said, but what popped up was Deanna Troy. It didn't say Deanna Riker. You know what I'm saying?
Well, she took Troy Riker.
But Jason's point is valid here, because he talks about, and that actually goes back to what I'm talking about, right? We don't assume that women are going to pass anything societally. We don't assume women are going to pass anything down matrilineally. The idea is it's all going to flow patrilineally from father to son, which is why we don't have a junior equivalent for women.
Because women,
for example, my family, the way my family gets around it is we actually flip first and middle names for our children. So my mother, my middle name is her first name, and vice versa. And if I'd had daughters, we would have had her first name again and my name as the middle name.
That just goes to show you how women were not thought of as having anything of value besides providing children, because you don't pass down your name, you don't pass down property, you don't pass down heritage, you don't pass down power, you don't pass down pretty much anything.
This got depressing.
It's really weird
in certain societies.
It's weird that we don't have an equivalent to the word junior in women. Does that exist? I think we should have that.
Technically, it's supposed to be the same thing, but it's not really done.
No, you don't even have the second. You don't even have a Marie the Second, or Marie the Third.
And that's partially
unless you're a queen.
Yes, and that's partially because the women are expected to change their surname, and if they change their surname, you can't be the second because you're not the birth name of the mother.
Like I'm saying, they have nothing of value, not even their name.
And
I'm currently rewatching the original series, And
I'm
you
so
all are
sorry.
reminding me of all of the bad parts of the original series.
Oh, it's misogynistic.
Well, I want to say
We have a
thinking about
whole episode on why Turnabout Intruder is the worst.
it is.
Didn't McCoy slap the shit out of a pregnant woman or something?
Wait, McCoy did a lot of slapping, actually, comparatively.
Oh my,
Well,
oh
just
my God.
the only person I could think of that is a junior or anything is Mr. Charles Tucker III, and chief engineer of the Enterprise NX-01, which is now 200 years.
And let's also have a conversation about the fact that he was a Florida man. So, of course,
Okay, yeah.
of course, the Southerner is going to have that name saddled to progeny.
Yeah.
I know my people.
Well, Florida, even though it's the South, Florida is like the Texas of the South.
I mean, Florida's its own thing.
Well,
Let's be real.
Texas is part of the South.
So, yeah.
Right, but I'm saying in the South, Florida is like the Texas of the United States is of the South, if that makes sense.
No,
But we're gonna keep going. We're just
Florida
gonna keep
is
going.
its own thing.
We're just gonna keep going. All right. So
carry the one, add the four. Something ain't adding up quite right here.
all right. So we've seen, as we've noticed, we've seen certain traits in Jack that remind us very strongly of a younger Picard. Let's talk about the whole situation with Jack telling Picard, "I don't need you," effectively, because we know that New Trek deals a lot with the importance of connection. In fact, I think No Win Scenario, this particular episode, is all about finding connection and using those connections to push yourself forward, to do better than you would on your own. And here is this primary character who is basically saying, I've been on my own. Well, ignore my mother. I take issue with that, y'all. I do. Will ignore my mother, but I've been on my own so long. That's who I am. That's what I do. I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Where do we see that going?
He's gonna have to join Starfleet at some point because apparently that's all they know how to do.
Well, remember, we find out at the end, in the flashback at the end of the episode, that Picard said to him, Starfleet was the only family I ever needed. So he's throwing that right back in Picard's face without Picard knowing, although we are given the hint that Picard put two and two together at the end of the episode, that was Jack at the...
But I also think when Jack looked around and he saw what he saw, I think he understood what Picard was saying in that moment.
Yeah. I agree.
I would agree with that.
So do we think we're going to see this learning arc? Because I got to tell you, this whole red door business, I got the feeling that this is going to be one of those situations where we're going to be like, if you had just mentioned to somebody that you were seeing stuff, like we could have saved ourselves an episode.
A season.
Least, right?
A season.
Oh, yeah. Please don't let this be Picard stuck in his brain talking to his dad as a therapist. Yeah.
Why? Why do you hurt me, Keith? I thought we were friends.
I'm not trying to hurt you. I promise you.
That really
I'm
hurt.
not trying to hurt you. Michael, maybe, not you.
But in all honesty, like I really have hope because at this point last season, I was like, oh my God, can we jump off a cliff? Why did you all take this turn? And we haven't made that turn. And I'm praying, you all. I am praying real hard. Like real hard. Because
How hard?
real hard. Because I don't want them to destroy the final season.
Yeah.
Like, don't destroy the final season. You already destroyed 2 seasons, y'all. That should have been enough for you.
Yeah.
Not the third one.
I mean, I got to tell you,
make
I
William angry,
I would
bro.
argue that that's a thing, except for the fact that the Netflix Witcher exists.
I've heard only good things about The Witcher.
Oh, just you wait.
I've only heard good things.
Well,
so.
I have the game as well, and I'm not as into it as everybody. And I watched the show, and I'm not as into it as everybody. So to each his own, you know.
But
But the
right,
Last of Us,
so
I like
so Jack is clearly not. So Jack's clearly not making the connections necessarily. I like that whole business with where Picard is basically like, "This is the only family I need," and Jack's like, "Gotcha, deuces."
But that
Because
also
there's a moment. Hold on, I'm not done. There's a moment where we look at Picard and we know that he's bullshitting. That there's an element of grief there.
Yeah. Well,
But Jack doesn't.
Especially in the aftermath of the loss of his brother and his nephew.
Yeah.
And also, he was speaking to cadets, right? And they kind of needed that, right? Yeah. And so he was speaking to his audience.
Absolutely. And we do get a certain sense of that sort of braggadocio associated with that. But it's interesting because it's almost like there's this comedy of miscommunication here.
Well,
because Jack's hearing one thing, Picard's saying another.
Right.
And we're never quite, and because we don't talk to each other, because God forbid, we don't ever have that moment of connection.
I would say, I think that it was more so kind of, you don't understand it until you go through it. And so I have this situation. I was talking to someone about like my Greek process in college, actually pledging and stuff. And they were like, this is terrible. And you are terrible. And you were abused for 2 semesters. And I can't believe you put up with that. And I'm like,
yeah, I saw School Days.
Right? I mean, that literally describes 4 years of my life.
But at the same time, when people actually have the opportunity to go through it, and you're standing on the other side of it, and it's like, oh wait, yes, it's a challenging experience, but it's different. And I really think that
people say that about cults too.
It's like Navy SEALs, right? It's like Navy
Jermaine
SEALs.
is like, I want to step in here, but I feel like, but no.
No, I'm trying to hear what you have to say.
But I feel like that was the moment, and to that point of, I think Keith made it earlier. Until Jack was sitting on that bridge after going through this harrowing experience, he didn't understand that comment. He did not understand it. I mean, it was like he was almost too young to understand it. And it was like, you'll get it when you're older. It'll hit you on the way home.
He still looks 30.
Huh?
He still looks 30.
He's a very old looking 23.
Right.
He got some city years on that face.
He's like that dude on Bad Boys. He's like, how old are you? 15? You look 30.
Well, that's apparently whatever he's carrying around in his head that's causing him to look like that. That's going to be our argument.
I really hope the actor doesn't ever watch this, because it sort of sounds like we're ragging on him. We're not. It's just.
By the way, he went absolutely full British in this episode too. Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt.
I know.
It's like, what the fuck?
Will, you need more light in front of you than behind you.
Jesus.
Oh yeah, no. It's good to know that apparently the classics never fall out of favor.
I have a question about Riker. It seemed like his decision was just to give up. Did that seem like a Riker thing to do? Like he totally just like, nah, it ain't gonna work. We're just gonna fall into the sun or whatever this thing is we're falling into.
As we talked about,
it kind of bothered me that they didn't work to because all of Star Trek was about, every single episode of Star Trek is about them working to the end, to the last minute.
But this is a guy who buried his son.
Huh?
He's so buried in grief, or with the appearance of grief.
I think paralyzed is better.
Fuck that. You're in Starfleet. Fuck your grief and your son. People die all the time. You're in Starfleet. You're gonna let that make you have command decisions about letting the ship die? That don't roll with me, bro. Sorry. You need to move aside with that.
That's why he doesn't have a command right now.
Right?
Well, he's a captain without a chair, as Shaw pointed out in the first episode.
Yep.
Well.
Yeah, no, and that's part of what's going on in the background, right? Is not only are Deanna and Kestra done with his nonsense, I suspect Starfleet is too.
Mm-hmm.
That just didn't roll with me with him just giving up. They should have been working that problem to the end.
I don't know, man. Like I've been hit with a few things in my life that have made it hard to get up the next day, and have definitely impaired my decision making. So I'm feeling a little more charitably disposed.
I understand that, but I work in high stress scenarios. I've had grief and depression like lots of people. And when you're that type of person and you're on your job and you're in that situation, you work that situation. If you're the more stressful the situation, the more you seem to come away from your depression and grief. It's when you sit solemnly and do nothing
until your compartmentalization breaks down.
And I think perhaps maybe that's what we saw. We saw him, breaking those shells down, right? And it took Picard to basically say, "Will, come on, man! Like we got to do this. We got, you know what I'm saying?
Like I'm gonna need you to get back in gear, dude."
Yeah, but he phrased it like Picard's decision was certain death.
Yeah,
and what they were facing was not certain death, but what they were facing was certain death. And he only needed to up it by 1 point and trying a little bit.
I think Jason's frustration is also, why do nothing, even if you're going to die? Wouldn't it be easier to do something?
I agree.
Especially if you're in that position.
I agree. Okay, so Jason, I hear what you're saying. I do. I really do. Because that's pretty much like how that's what we think about when we think about Star Trek, and especially Starfleet. But at the same time, I allow, especially if I'm watching the show, I allow characters to be characters. I allow characters to go through whatever it is that they need to go through and find themselves on the other side.
Oh, so you're saying you just allow writers to write what they want without giving them
no, that's not what I'm saying. Like it was exactly what you're saying. It was important. They started this particular season off by letting us know that he's going through grief, right?
Yes.
So and marital problems.
Now he needs to get to the other side, and that was what he needed to get to the other side.
So do you think? Are you looking at it as equivalent to PTSD? Because if you have,
I don't think that's a fair statement. Because I think any moment. Right? Because I think PTSD is a very, very different situation. Right. I think because Riker, I joke about being paralyzed. Riker's still making decisions. Riker's still functioning, right? Which is not to say that people with PTSD don't, but I don't think that's the underlying ideology that we're seeing here. I think what we're seeing is someone whose compartmentalization is breaking down.
I think that Marie, I think if I could give you some words, I know you don't need them, but I think
fair enough.
I think what we're seeing is him not wanting to put another parent through what he had to go through. And in order to make sure that doesn't happen, he has decided to be the uber safe captain, not the first officer that we have come to know him as. He really did not. He didn't want to be very risky. He was like, let's get out of here. I got to get these people home. They have families. Like it was all about saving the lives, not necessarily like doing whatever he could to save lives and keep the tension, any risk down to a minimum. That's not who we came to know. And I think because he lost his child, he has now taken that approach to just about every aspect of his life.
I would agree with that assessment for last episode.
He wasn't trying to save lives, though.
This particular episode is a little different.
Episode, right, Jermaine? It made more sense because he was like, "No, we just got to get out of here and save everybody, man. We can't fight."
Which is not inherently like. Let me stand up for that because it's not inherently a bad choice.
Correct.
In light of the information he had, and especially in light of the demonstration of the portal weapon,
it wasn't a bad choice at all. It was a fine choice for a captain to make. I'm saying. Yeah. What Jermaine is saying is that choice he made last show was fine, but to turn around and make the choice that he made this episode didn't really make sense.
Well, he ultimately makes the choice to allow Picard squared to go for it.
But that
is that what you're calling synthetic Picard? Picard squared?
Well, no. I mean, we had two Picards technically. We had Jack Crusher and doing their thing.
And they were both given the pitch, which I
also was a reference to the second season Next Generation episode.
Also fair.
I got a question. Who was surprised when Lieutenant LaForge turned out to be a changeling?
No.
No.
Like as soon as she walks through the door, we're like,
As soon as I saw her, I was like, "Yep, that's changeling." Yep. Because what you doing down there?
What's crazy?
Exactly.
They just had a conversation about it.
Yes, and that's the other thing. Like, I would not say the writing in No Win Scenario was terribly subtle. In fact, I would probably say that it was about as subtle as a clue bat.
They did a lot of show and tell when they should have done more show, not tell.
He should have shot her right on stun.
But I have to say,
all, I'm gonna shoot, if I'm in that world, I'm shooting everybody on stun. It don't even matter.
But I gotta say,
Jason's just walking down the streets of San Francisco.
It's not gonna matter. I'm not
Right.
gonna make decisions about it. Everybody getting stunned, right? That's like why you have to think about that.
Everybody must get
Why do you have to wonder? Should I shoot this person? Yes, just shoot him.
and we find Jason several years later on a Federation penal colony. This is how that's gonna work.
But when
Having dinner with Lore.
For him to shoot her immediately on stun, and for it not to have worked, and for them to start to get into a scuffle, and then Seven come in and kill her, instead of him like looking like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, you want to come help? I don't need your help. Okay, you help.
What is Shaw gonna stun her with? though?
Yeah.
Dude, it's a changeling on the ship. Everybody should be wearing a gun.
He's neck deep in engine guts.
There's a changeling on the ship. They should all have guns. It's a red alert.
Right,
But they can't alert the changeling that they know about it.
I mean,
in that
they
moment,
know.
oh yeah, I would have shot. And in that
Yeah.
moment, I would have had a gun.
In a
I
battle.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering now is why didn't this changeling vaporize?
I mean,
I
it
was
did
wondering that
eventually.
exact same thing, Will.
It did eventually.
The setting on the gun.
And why does it look like mucus?
Yeah,
I know. I was like,
It
what?
Like
What
bloody
is that?
mucus.
Like, is this
Right.
what it looks like when you stun it? Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. I really wanted to see what would look like if Seven assimilated it.
What? Oh,
She doesn't have that ability anymore, man.
Oh, come on. She has nanoprobes going through her.
This is
All right,
true.
guys. All right, guys. So
We're past the
All
hour
right.
mark.
we are past the hour mark, and despite the sort of good-natured ribbing on this episode, I really enjoyed it.
I do.
And I have to say,
Oh my God,
I
Maria,
did.
are you gonna call for a rating?
I am not. I'm just going to ask you if you
Wow.
liked it.
I don't like it.
Thumbs up.
I got some other notes.
I don't like this system.
Okay.
I like a numerical. Where is the LiDAR scale?
I am giving this another 10 out of 10.
What? Another
All right.
Because of the final scene, because it connects it back to Encounter at Farpoint. Now we know where the space jellyfish come from.
And they were so cute, the baby jellyfish.
Yes.
They were cute.
First of all, there were hundreds of them. So why are they so not known is kind of stupid. It should have been like.
I mean,
couple, but they were
space is kind of
everywhere.
big, my dude.
Yeah.
And they're not. And reminder, they're not in Federation space.
Okay.
Right.
Oh,
I mean,
how about the Daystrom Institute?
Yeah, that flashed on the screen when they expelled the portal device.
Where did that come from? Which ship did that come from? Or did that come from
That was
that?
on Rocky's ship, right?
So we talked about with the Rafi storyline that they stole the portal device from the Daystrom Institute. And so when they discharged it from the front of the Shrike and we saw a piece of it come at the camera, it's a Daystrom
Institute.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I think we'd already all kind of internalized and figured that was where that came from. That we have multiple portal guns floating around.
And we'll find out more about it in the next week's episode, Imposter, which features much more of the Rafi and Worf storyline and the possible introduction of a couple more people that we've been waiting to see.
Well,
Jordy.
Right. But I'll tell you this. They are doing the thing. Rafi and Worf are doing the thing. Because I wasn't here last week. I know this is my first episode of the season. Sorry, guys.
It is.
Yeah, they spent all this episode doing it.
No.
Oh. What thing you talking about?
Do not make me find the bean footage, Jason. Do not.
That's what he was saying.
No, he's not.
No. I want to watch the government contract, Black Ops contractor Worf and Raffi show. That's what I want. I don't even need Section 31 anymore because I'm not sure it's ever going to happen. But I would watch Black Ops contractor Worf.
Well, let's not get on CBS in their decision making because they're cutting Star Trek, which is like their like most watched like franchise on their network, and I'm like, what is wrong? We are literally the underpinning of everything you all got. Why are you cutting us?
Well, they're only cutting one of the 7.
They're cutting Discovery to make room for 2 more shows.
Doesn't matter. You don't cut my shit.
I agree. I mean, because they literally had 2 seasons left. But I'm just saying,
that's the flagship show.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice. That
Well,
was an
also
interesting choice.
a Darmok and Jalad reference.
Yeah.
But
Well, as we saw at the beginning of tonight's episode, no matter when I tried to watch it, I had to watch the promo for Strange New World. So I think they that's what they're pushing now is their flagship Star Trek franchise now.
Yes, let's
Gotta
cancel.
be.
I'm calling it out. Let's cancel the Black Woman show and put the white man up there. And I'm not supporting it.
Preach.
I'm just having my nuggets, y'all. I'm waiting for the bean footage.
I'm just saying.
Next week,
yeah, that is a whole conversation on FTP, or
Yep.
that we're gonna have to have.
I'll be
That
there.
whole conversation.
Let's not.
I will get that. I will get that scheduled.
Mhm.
I will get that scheduled. So same bad time, same bad channel next week.
Yep.
Remember to
Bad
like and
channel.
subscribe. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you think of this episode. We'll see you next
Feel
week.
free to leave a rating. I say 7.6.
I say a watermelon / plum.
I say
7 out of 9.
Hey, Thomas Riker.
All right, we're clearly killing it. See you next week, guys.
Bye.